Hello, my name is Laura Lugo, and for this assignment I decided to pick the documentary Cultura, which is related to the violence of the drug wars in Mexico. Throughout the course, we have learned about different factors that contribute to the failure of the criminal justice system. The influence of drugs had brought a whole culture that has definitely affected thousands of people not only in Mexico but also in the United States. There are significant changes that have happened after the growing culture of the narcos. For example, the increase of violence, increase of incarceration in the United States, and a new way of life where society is idolizing the narcocultura. Unfortunately, these changes have affected our community negatively, and society seems to either ignore the fact that this is serious or they just have lost hope and are getting used to this new way of life. That documentary showed how corrupted the system in Mexico is and how society got already used to the system. We know that culture is very difficult to change, and with all the violence in the country, the narcocultura has become part of the everyday life. The documentary highlights the situation in Ciudad Juárez, where the number of homicides has risen in a very significant way in the past years. In 2007, there were 320 homicides. In 2008, there were 1,623 homicides, and in 2009 there were 2,754, and in 2010 3,622 homicides. With all of these homicides, families in Ciudad Juárez live with fear. The documentary mentioned that people doesn't even go outside because of the things that had happened and because they know for a fact that something can really happen to them or their relatives. I lived in Mexico my first 12 years, and I'm currently living here in Querétaro, Mexico. Even though I have always considered myself proud to be a Mexican and a conscious individual about the situation that Mexico is going through, the documentary shocked me. It honestly opened my eyes. The documentary showed information in a very powerful way. It made me cry, I got angry, but most of all, I felt a lot of impotence because unfortunately, there is very little I could do to help this situation. And that is not only for me. Thousands of more other people would wish to make a difference about this issue, and many of them who are actually doing something end up dead. In the article Mexico's Drug War, Andrea Sanchez explains that during 1980s, Mexican President Miguel de la Madrid announced that drug trafficking was a national security problem. Sanchez also explained the alliance that the ruling institutional party, which is PRI, has maintained with drug cartels having a patron-client relationship. This relationship with drug cartels did not just limit the overall level of violence, it also ensured that cartel members were never subjected to court investigations, and it defined the rules of the game for trafficking. The government is always part of the social issues either for good or for bad. The Revolutionary Party, which is PRI, had things controlled in their own way, maintaining a relationship with the cartels instead of trying to end with them. It is evidently hard to try to end with cartels that are so powerful, and things can really come out of control when trying to fight against them. That was the situation that happened in 2000 when Felipe Calderón was the new elected president in Mexico and declared war against drug cartels. The cartels splintered and embarked on an orgy of violence spawned soulless killing machines. According to an article, Felipe Calderón militarized and intensified the conflict that had been managed by his predecessors through an opaque strategy of accommodation, payoffs, assigned trafficking routes, and periodic takedowns of uncooperative couples. Unfortunately, government's policies do not always work. Calderón was hoping to curtail rising violence of the drug cartels, but instead, according to an article, not even his hardest critics anticipated that by the end of his term, cartels would become an order of magnitude more violent, producing 60,000 homicides overall and a concomitant rise in cartel state homicides, attacks on army troops, and anti-state violence in general. Since the beginning of the documentary, we can see that there is no hope in the Mexican community. Children should be society's future, and we can see them facing violence and talking about it normal just as they would talk about some game. And this is not only in Mexico. People from all over the world have a perspective of fear towards Mexico. In the United States, where a considerable number of Mexicans reside, have also adopted this perspective. Some may feel fear, embarrassment, disappointment, but others feel proud and have adopted this culture as a new way of life. I have lived almost all my life in Mexico, and I personally have seen how society has got used to this way of life. Throughout the years, the culture of every region adopts traditions which are forming part of their culture. Unfortunately, during the recent years, society has experienced a high increase in violence from drug cartels. This has definitely influenced the culture. In the documentary, there were several girls who were asked if what do they think about narcos, and they replied by saying that they would love to have a narco as a boyfriend. They look at them as idols, as some type of heroes. Society has to face reality. Young boys are getting into these cartels because of the lack of opportunities, because of the money, the attention they give to the girls. And one of the most important factors is to get respect from others. As a man mentioned in the documentary, everyone wants respect, and sometimes there is no other way to get it, and a lot of them are going through wrong paths. A book called Code of the Streets shows how respect is extremely important for people, especially Hispanics in the United States. And this is part of the culture here in Mexico, where nobody likes to feel left out, feel poor, or inferior to others. The documentary presented a narco corridos as an important part of the narco cultura. Society has adopted this music as part of their culture. The narco corridos have contributed to the strengthening of the development of drug trafficking in Mexico. The image of drug dealers as heroes through the corridos has created some type of social hero to a community. For example, there are narcos who redistribute their wealth among the poor, and the community idolizes them like they were some sort of Mexican Robin Hood. The narco corridos are not only popular in Mexico, but also in the United States, where a significant percent of the population is Mexican. According to Nieto in the article Political Corruption and Narcotrafficking in Mexico, in 2003, Mexican traffickers were responsible for 77% of the cocaine arriving in the United States and 88% of marijuana. Also, following the report called National Drug Threat Assessments in 2010, prepared by the U.S. State Department of Justice, it estimated that 90% of cocaine entering the United States transits through Mexico from Colombia being cocaine producers. The same report indicated that drug cartels in Mexico control approximately 70% of foreign narcotics that flow into the United States. This is how powerful Mexican cartels are. The consumption of drugs in the United States has created significant effects in the criminal justice system, like the overcrowding inmates in prisons. The United States is the country with most incarceration in the world. There are currently 2.2 million people in prison and in jails throughout the country. Statistics have shown a significant increase in mass incarceration between the years 1985 and 2013. Statistics of state and federal prison population show that by the year of 2014, there is a 50.1% of population because of drug-related offenses in federal prisons and a 15.7% in state prisons. Evidently, the drug trafficking from Mexico has affected the United States in a very significant way. The growing population in prisons have become a serious issue for this country. According to the article's Trends in U.S. Corrections, most of these people are not high-level actors in the drug trade, and most have no prior criminal record for a violent offense. And as we have learned in this course, the criminal justice system is creating a cycle of people from community to jail and again to community. This is another important issue because, like it is mentioned above, these people that are being incarcerated for drug offenses are getting in prison without having a criminal record. Some of them might not even be bad individuals, but considering that they are getting into jail, which is in which is an environment of violence, they might end up in jail again after completing their sentence. Mexico's problem of insecurity, violence, and drug trafficking is not only affecting its country, but it has transcended boundaries. The corruption and narco-trafficking that it is seen in Mexico needs to be addressed seriously in order to restore the judicial and political institution. Also, it is very important to give back to the community the confidence and respect towards their institutions and the hope they need to believe in their country and to have aspirations to a better life. Society has to face reality and realize that things can actually change, but it needs more than government money or wars. It needs cooperation from the society and country's leaders. Of course, it will not be easy because as long as there is a market of illegal drug consumers, suppliers will find a way to be a part of it. Mexico needs to work together with the United States and take this issue very serious. Narco-trafficking is affecting thousands of people, and we cannot let this happen. People are dying. Narco-traffickings are getting more and more power. The government should give peace to our society. We cannot live in a narco cultura which kills families, provoking instability, insecurity, and take away our hope.